You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on the BQN and the Fandom Podcast Network. I'm your host, Christos, and with me today are Amy and Mark. How are you?
Hello, hello.
Hi, good morning.
How was your week?
Well, I am wrapping up the school year. One more day with the kiddos. It's doing great. And tomorrow is my birthday. Yay.
Woohoo! Celebrating 29. Well, I'm a little bummed because last year on your birthday, you were here visiting me in San Diego and we were winery hopping. So
yeah, we were. Oh my gosh.
Remember that? Okay. You need to come down and visit soon.
Do. That was so much fun.
How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing great. It's been quite a fun week. A lot of podcasting, a lot that people haven't heard, but will hear soon. I don't know. I could bring it up at the beginning of the show. Yeah, there'll be a new show dropping on BQN very soon called Cinema Z, and I'm going to host that with Laz Marquez and Matt Jennings, and it's a movie discussion and review podcast, and there might be some cocktails involved. There's a lot of laughter, and so if you like movies, you like to laugh, you'll probably enjoy this show. So excited.
Oh, yeah, both two wonderful guys. I know Laz kind of well, and Matt Jennings a lot. You can go check out. There's an episode of What's the T-Bev with Matt if you guys want to know more about him and his Trekdom. Oh, I was sorry to miss last week. My parental units were visiting, but I did do a lot of Trek education with them, so it was not. It was almost like doing duty. I've been very fortunate that I've had, whether it's been a few friends of mine or parents that, oh, well, we're almost done with Picard. So I got to be there and watch the last two episodes with several people and watch them watch it for the first time. And it's almost like more exciting to be like, just you wait.
Mm-hmm.
So, and watch it through their eyes. It's like Christmas morning with your kids or something.
Yes. Oh,
my parents
lovely.
just finished too. Yeah, I got my dad to watch it. He was a big TNG fan, and he loved season 3 of Picard. So,
yeah, cool. And we also got to start watching some Strange New Worlds, which is what we're going to be talking about here in a little bit. But before we get there, Amy, how about you give us some feedback from last week?
Yeah, well, we covered Voyager's Timeless with Captain Jeremiah, and we have listener Paul Wright wrote, one of my favorite all-time Voyager episodes! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. I can't believe you've never seen it before, Amy. So then I replied, I was surprised too. It is a great episode. I usually know the greatest episodes from each series. So thank you, Paul, for your kind comments.
Oh, I was sorry to miss the episode. I like Timeless a lot, although I will say it does have a lot of Endgame similarities, or shall I say Endgame has a lot of Timeless, but I'm sure you guys got into that.
Yes.
Well, now it's time for All Good World.
From Las Vegas to Boston, USA to Canada and South America, from the United Kingdom to South Africa, from Russia to Australia, the South Pacific and beyond. This is All Good World.
Each episode, we highlight a different location around the globe where this podcast has reached. Today's episode, we'd love to give a special shout out to Massachusetts. Not just because I happen to live here currently, but because evidently it is the number 2 place in the United States that downloads All Good Things. Cool. So, yeah, just behind California. Massachusetts also has a large number of listeners. And fun fact, Massachusetts has a reputation for social and political progressivism, becoming the first U.S. state in one of the earliest jurisdictions in the world to legalize and recognize same-sex marriage. Boston is a concentrated hub of LGBT culture and activism in the United States. Prominent American political dynasties have hailed from the state, including the Adams family and the Kennedy families.
Oh, hey, Massachusetts.
Yeah. I wonder who's downloading. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, my neighbors, evidently. Thanks, guys. Well, there's a lot of, you gotta admit, there's a lot of nerds here in Massachusetts. We got Harvard, MIT, like all the higher learnings, located here. So that makes sense. Nerds like Star Trek.
No kidding.
Yes, and it is in vast opposition to what's happening down in Florida. So we thank you, Massachusetts.
Don't get me started with Florida.
Oh my God.
I'm actually to the point where it's like I am almost beside myself that the Star Trek cruise is going out of Florida, almost to the point like there's that real particular part of me that wants to just cancel altogether on the Star Trek cruise and say there is no way I will set foot in your state, Florida, until you get your act together.
I think we should create a new rule at All Good Things. It's a law, actually. Don't say Florida. Yep, you just can't say Florida. You can say the southern state. Don't say the word Florida.
It's not even Florida. It's a don't say DeSantis thing because
that's true. I lived in Florida twice and absolutely loved it. Southern Florida is amazing. Miami and Fort Lauderdale area is so beautiful and great people. Very huge gay cultural mecca.
Yeah, I love going to Key West. So.
Oh my God, Key West is great.
Amy, do you want to introduce our topic this week?
Well, sure. We are going to be continuing our genetic engineering part 3, and we're going to cover Strange New Worlds, Ghost of Illyria. Now, this is the one where they go down to the planet and there's like electromagnetic storms and Pike and Spock can't escape. And then everyone up on the ship, they're like attracted to lights and they're banging their heads. And it's very weird. And Una must confront a secret she's been hiding. And that gets very dicey, I feel.
Amy, is this a Joe Manosky episode?
There's should a lot be.
Of secrets there's another big secret in this episode in the B story, too.
Oh, the doctor? Yeah, Dr. Mbenga.
Speaking of which, just off topic, I'm kind of looking for a really good Dr. Mbenga shirt and uniform. I need to do that. So anyways, listeners, if anyone's got the 411 on a really good one, I see a few on eBay, but I just don't know. Hook me up. All right. So who are the Illyrians? Ooh.
Yeah, who are they? And when did they start this genetic engineering?
It's interesting that, this is episode 3 of genetic engineering, and this might be the first time that we've brought up the Illyrians. Is that correct?
No, I think just in passing, I really feel like we've talked about it in episode 1. I don't know, though.
My memory's not so good.
Correct. I feel like we've talked about it, but not given it a full real episode like we are today. Yes. Illyrians were avid practitioners of genetic engineering. They believed in adapting their bodies to the new planets they settled rather than changing the planet to suit themselves. What a novel concept.
Yeah.
As a result, Illyrians varied widely in appearance as well as in capabilities. Some Illyrians were extremely indistinguishable from humans, as we are finding out in this episode, while others exhibited various traits such as cranial ridges, webbed hands, pointed ears, and different structured eyes. And if you really think about that, the first time we see Illyrians is in season 3 of Enterprise. Archer steals components from their ship famously in one of his more ethical moments that we don't. Yeah. So that was like the introduction of the Illyrians. And at that point, nothing in that episode talked about genetic engineering. And they also looked more alien in that episode. They didn't look like humans.
I did see on Memory Alpha they mentioned them twice in TOS. I don't know if they were in TOS, but they were mentioned in TOS on 2 occasions. I have to go back and look.
So they've been starting this process as Illyrians way back in TOS, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh yeah, like I said, I saw that on Memory Alpha that they had appeared in 2 TOS episodes, but I didn't click on the link to see which ones or how their involvement was there. So I'm sure the listeners do know. Maybe Rhea Papa Giorgio would know. We could ask her.
So at that time in TOS, was there the restriction for genetic modifications?
Mm-hmm.
There was. Okay, I didn't know
Well,
that.
it would be there if we're sticking with canon, but the question is, do they get into it? So that might be some more homework for us. But it does kind of make sense the way Strange New Worlds does try to bridge the gap with TOS. So,
That's right. Yeah. Well, and so what I really like about it, as you sort of mentioned, like they are adapting themselves to the planet where they live instead of forcing the planet to adjust to us. And what a novel idea. If only we could just harness just a small percentage of that. If everyone on this earth thought about that. I think that is an amazing idea. Would you modify your genetics? I know that's a question for topic 2, but let's ask it here.
Yeah, it's relevant. It's relevant. Let's talk about it now. Mark, would you modify your genetics to say if we were moving to, we could get to Mars and you could bioengineer yourself to survive on the surface of Mars? Would you?
It's an interesting thought because obviously, like, I'd love the idea of space travel and checking out another planet. But if it means never returning to Earth because my genetics would have changed to suit this other planet, I'm not sure. It makes the decision a little bit harder. Now, my stance on it in general, like it's a really gray area. And I like that we keep sort of going back to the well and discussing this particular topic because it is important, I think, in 2023 more than at any point in human history, where we have a lot of these capabilities to do genetic modification. But where does it stop? I mean, if you find out that your, child might have something like, a genetic abnormality that might, create behavioral issues or what have you, is this something that you would modify in the womb to make sure that that doesn't happen? Is that okay? Where do we draw the line? To me, as far as that's concerned, I don't know where I stand on that. It's a really hard call, but I feel like if it is to, I guess, benefit the life of the child, I may be for it. I don't know. I think it's very circumstantial.
I would agree. We're talking about a couple of different things here. So yes, circumstantial. I mean, there's one thing about, visiting other planets. There's another thing about trying to anticipate and cure disease or avoid disease before it happens. So it kind of gets into that, should we do this? I mean, it's one thing to say also I'm correcting a problem. It's another thing to say I'm enhancing you, because then you get into things like what you saw with Bashir and DS9, where he was actually enhanced and one of the smartest humans out there as a result of his genetic engineering. It's another thing to say, hey, this child could be born with Down syndrome or something like that, and we can correct that in the womb. I think it's a slippery slope of, because if you can do that, then like you said, you can start doing other things which led us to, in Star Trek lore, it led us to Khan. So
it doesn't seem so far-fetched now, though. The idea of the government or any government that's on the planet right now, I mean, Russia, you could think, might be looking into it to make genetically modified super soldiers. It sounds fantastical, But really, like, somebody has to be looking at it right now if we're doing a lot of, studies and talk about it in 2023.
So I'd like to cross the streams talking about adapting towards another planet to go there. And Mark, I agree with you. Like, if I adapt and genetically engineer, does that mean I can no longer return to Earth? That's a huge question for me. And in The Expanse, I'm not sure. Have you guys seen The Expanse?
Yes.
Okay.
Some of it.
Okay, it is so good. I'd like to shout out to Norm, who got me onto that, gave me the book, and then I watched the series. But they have, the Earth, and they have like belters. And the belters have, because they're outside of the asteroid belt, and then we have the people who live on Mars and people who live on Earth. So there's these three groups of humans. But the belters, because of where they live, have naturally adapted. So they have evolved. And it's very difficult for them to return to Earth because of the gravity and stuff like that. So my question is, that it is evolution versus modification, and is genetic engineering just another form of our evolution as a species?
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
Yeah, I mean, there's that idea that this is what would have happened, as a result of nature.
Right.
And then, genetic engineering, intentionally doing it, is actually, speeding that up. Kind of had an interesting thought, like, what's the difference between having this ban on genetic engineering and whatnot, and what, like, Chapel does in episode 1 and modifies the genetic code to look like aliens? And although that was a temporary thing, they're still messing with genetic code and could have unforeseen circumstances, potentially.
I found that to be an early regeneration for me. I really thought that was weird, because even if you go into TNG, which is 100 years later, they're using makeup. They're not like, Dr. Crusher isn't, necessarily changing their genome. She's, maybe adding prosthetics and stuff. But yeah, in TOS too, it was like makeup and stuff. It was clearly.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's also interesting that, Chapel has a line in here when she's talking to M'Benga and Una, and she's like, "Oh, I have no idea what you're doing there. I don't know your physiology." And she kind of plays almost like, I don't want to say dumb, but dumb. But it's like, wait a minute. They specifically say in episode 1, your specialty is, genetic, you doing, modifying DNA and things like that for away team missions and whatever. So I don't know. I think it's maybe a loose thread for writers there, that maybe different writers on different episodes didn't quite connect that.
So another loose thread, sort of as you're talking about, like, would you change, modify in the womb? And we have two examples. Like Una, she was modified as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And Bashir, right? They didn't have a choice. Their parents did that to them. And so now they're having to live under, right, the constraints of Starfleet and have this hidden. And, that's a lot of consequences that they have to live with that they didn't choose. So do you modify without their consent just because you are the parent?
Yeah. I feel like it is a little bit different in both cases. Like, culturally, the Illyrians, that's kind of what they do as a species and as a people, and it's not illegal. And but I still think there is some idea of consent there. But with Bashir, yes, I mean, his parents, that was literally without his knowledge, and leaving him with very the consequences of that action. He's had to lie. He's had to, like, Una voluntarily applies for Starfleet and accepts, okay, to do this, I have to hide who I am. I have to lie about who I am and create backstories. With Bashir, he didn't have a choice, and and then obviously, I mean, they say I think it was a teenager when he realized, if I'm remembering the episode correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there is this idea of anything that it's consent. I think there's a lot of times, I mean, it kind of rips off this whole other trip down Pandora's box, but like parents make a lot of decisions that are, where children are concerned, impactful on them for the rest of their life. I mean, parents introduce children to religion, and it's not a choice of the child. It's basically they're basically indoctrinated into religion, and then later, they reach an age and either they choose to stick with that religion or they choose to leave it. But then it's like there is this idea that with anything, life-altering decisions are being imparted by parents onto their children. Mm-hmm. And like I said, that's a huge topic.
A really interesting connection to TOS with La'an's background being Noonien Singh. I originally, when I first watched Strange New Worlds, the first season, and on the multiple rewatches, I've always sort of gone side-eye with it and thought, oh, why what's the need? Why have her be in there and have her be a Noonien Singh? Can't she just be a new character just with a new backstory? However, when I rewatched this episode, in my head it was like, oh, well, this makes sense now why, like, maybe Spock and Kirk knew so much about Khan in the TOS episode. Like, oh yeah, if this is who it is, Khan Noonien Singh, wasn't he blah, blah, blah? And they would know this ancient history, maybe because they had come in contact with La'an. So it actually makes really cool headcanon now. So
yeah,
I never thought of that. Yeah, how it circles. Okay.
I see that totally. On the other hand, it's like it's a little bit too in your face. So I can totally accept that the eugenic wars would be something that Kirk and Spock would know about, and Khan obviously almost took over the world. So just like we know who Napoleon is and Hitler is, future people would know about Khan. I think it's almost a little too much from a Star Trek fan 57-year franchise to be kind of throwing in yet another TOS reference into the show, because there's a lot.
So this episode actually has two different types of genetic engineering going on here,
Yes.
right? Because of La'an, who's a descendant of Khan, is that? And then, so her modifications are purely physical, right? Extra strength.
Well, La'an hasn't been modified. Her ancestors had been. However,
so wouldn't there be genetic passed down?
I mean, perhaps, but where I see the modification here is when Una is saving La'an in the engineering from all that radiation, right?
Yeah.
Some of her genetically modified DNA gets passed to La'an at that point. And then they're able to go to La'an and use La'an's, body to create the pathogen to then spread to the rest of the crew. So technically, now all of the rest of the crew of the Enterprise have within them genetically modified DNA.
From both.
Yeah, including Uhura. Just saying.
Wait, Uhura? You mean?
Yeah, Uhura too. Like the whole crew, everybody.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because they were given the antidote.
Well, the cure was synthesized using the antibodies that were produced by La'an's body.
Everybody ended up getting genetically modified is where I'm trying to go with this.
Yeah, or some way. But and honestly, kind of like spoiler alert, what jumping to the end of the episode, like the whole point is that they all would have died had it not been for Una being there and, genetic engineering. So there is those of you who may have picked up Strange New World season 1 on either Blu-ray or on iTunes, this episode does have a deleted scene. It's actually an extended scene where you see the little Ensign Lance, who actually is the first person to contract the disease. They show him opening that locker on the planet and the light he is actually kind of let me back this up a little bit. Pike and Una are kind of fishing around on the planet this would be at the beginning of the episode and collecting information. And then Ensign Lance kind of sticks in there and drops some really prejudiced comments about Illyrians and genetic modification and why would Starfleet be even wasting their time doing this research, and that the Illyrians brought this on themselves. They basically caused themselves to go extinct because of their own short-sightedness. And Pike kind of snaps him back and basically says, it's not your place to judge, and obviously keep your comments to yourself. And he kind of puts his head down, and then it kind of jumps to that further scene about Pike and Una talking about people being kind of on edge with the whole genetic modification thing. So it's about a 2-minute scene, but it does add a little bit more context and gives Ensign Lance a lot more screen time other than, being in his underwear in the hallway.
No, I didn't mind that. But also, what I think is cool about this scene, I haven't seen it myself, but what I think is cool about it is it reminds me of in TOS, there's multiple occasions where Kirk is telling the crew that, the people that work under him, the red shirts, that may have a little bit of bias or prejudice towards alien A of the week, he says multiple times, like, leave prejudice off the bridge. And this is an example of Pike saying the same thing. So I thought that was kind of cool. Also kind of tie into TOS a little bit.
Yes, I actually remember that scene that you're talking about, Mark. I'm so happy with myself.
Yay.
Oh, TOS. Nice. But
I find that it's really cool to, be reminded, yes, there's this group of people, and you have to when dealing with people, base, a case by case. You get to know that person, and don't bring in your prejudices because they are an individual. And I love that if we can just judge and not say, well, all is this. And I know we get a lot of that in Star Trek with, oh, well, the Klingons, they like to fight. Okay, that was very, early on. But what I love, which I'm just going to throw in a assimilation, that we're seeing different subgroups within. So we're getting this diversity within a culture. It's not just the monoculture that Star Trek is so famous for. And here we're getting the Illyrians. We're getting to know Una and her representation of this group. But that's not even true. That is her. She just happens to be an Illyrian. You know the difference?
Right. You really touch on the dialogue and it's almost a monologue that Una has at the end of the episode when she's doing her log, and she's talking about, she's still unsettled even though Pike defended her or whatnot, because is she being accepted because she as an individual did something, because she saved the ship, and if she were removed, she's even questioning, would Pike feel the same way about Illyrians? So she still has that doubt, obviously. And so, and it's kind of it's more of a question with no answer at the moment, are you, you see this all the time. I know people who, and it's so contradictory. I know people who are prejudiced about, against Black people, unfortunately. And I've seen them be friends with Black people too, and African Americans, I should say. And I'm like, how can you do that? Like,
Mhm.
you're obviously have met African Americans and see that they're just like any other human being, and you exhibit and you accept that person,
Mhm.
but yet as a whole, you still have this prejudicial approach toward them. Unfortunately, I hate when the people use words like them. Those are like key red flags that people have prejudice when they start referring to them as them and they.
Mhm.
And same thing toward Hispanic people and toward gay people. You hear it all the time, and it's like, well, I accept you because you're my gay child, but I don't think you should have the right to marry. You hear
Mhm.
that all the time. That's not my experience, but I've seen that all the time. It's like, well, if you can accept one because it's like you're somehow you're related, and or it's a friendship, a coworker, whatever, but then you still have these overarching prejudices. It boggles my mind how you can accept one but still harbor that sort of resentment toward a whole other group.
Mhm.
Rant over.
And when Pike said something along the lines when Una was trying to resign, and he said something along the lines of, well, if everyone could get to know you, then they would not feel this way about Illyrians. And she had that hesitancy that's like, well, am I being accepted because now I'm the spokesperson for this entire race? There was that hesitancy. And she has a very good point. Like, she can't be the representation for Starfleet, right? She's not going to be the ambassador. She is an individual.
I think you can kind of put that whole topic of it on hold. I think it's obviously going to be front and center at the beginning of season 2, because when season 1 ended, they kind of picked back up this storyline, and she gets arrested at the very end of season 1 for being genetically modified. And so, looking at the previews for season 2, we see her on the ship and being part of the crew. So obviously, this does get resolved positively, but we'll have to
If
wait
this
and
was
see.
on Galaxy class, it would be talking about canon connections. There'd be a bunch in this episode of canon connections. And I love that it's going to get picked up. My question for both of you guys is, because we're limited with the 10 episode seasons, do you think they're going to pull what they did with Lower Decks and solve it all with episode 1? That's what I think. I think it's going to be one and done. Episode 1, they solve the mystery of Una, and then they move on. What do you guys think?
There is like a 5-part comic book series that deals with this, that actually it sandwiches itself between season 1 and 2, and it's about the Illyrian thing and Una being arrested. So I think they're laying some backstory so that you kind of get more exposition through the comic book, but you won't need it necessarily when it comes back. But Amy, what do you think?
Yeah, I am with you, Mark. I do hope that it's one and done. I was thinking as I was watching this, like, okay, this is a pretty good episode. We have a good beginning, middle, and end about the Illyrians. There is the, pulling threads through with Una and La'an. So if it's not resolved, I just really want a short bit. I don't want the episode to be about it and then continue the story. I really want this to be episodic.
Well, and I don't necessarily want a whole court-martial episode either, where we have to watch it all play out in court, and Pike comes in, and this could very well be the first episode of season 2. So maybe I'm dogging it before I've seen it. I don't know, but like where it's very Measure of a Man type of thing,
Yeah, Drumhead. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, like so hopefully it's. I guess why I'm saying that too, because I don't want something so similar to, what we may have already seen before in Star Trek. So however they get us out of this and work around this loophole, or whatever loophole they find, I hope it's just not kind of a rehash of other court drama episodes or anything that we may have seen already.
Well, Measure of a Man, Drumhead. There was an episode of Deep Space Nine also that had to do with wasn't it Bashir that it all comes out and
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So they have had these one-off courtroom episodes that have been extremely well written and well crafted and memorable. When you look back at the pantheon of Star Trek episodes, like some of these courtroom shows can be the best episodes in Trek, as long as they stay the course of doing their own unique thing and writing their own thing, telling their own story. But I agree with Christos. If it's just a rehash of what's already happened, that would be very disappointing, because they have here an opportunity to do something really unique.
That being said, how about we jump into some assimilations and regenerations? So I'll start off. Mark, I think, pointed out that the computer voice in this episode does sound a lot like Majel without it actually being her. So I thought that was a nice little similarity. It's funny because I sort of had read your assimilation before my rewatch this morning. And so I was kind of watching for it. So once I watched for it, I was like, oh, yeah, he's right. Oh, by the way, too, I also find I had to start watching when my parents were here. I had to put subtitles on because my stepmom is very hard of hearing. And I pick up so much more when I've got the subtitles on.
Yes.
A lot. Even if it's just pronunciation and spelling.
Spelling, yep.
But there are a lot of details that are missed just because audibly you're not picking everything up. Because it does. Anyways, that's another assimilation, folks.
I think that the voice actress that they got, I have to believe that they got her to sound like Majel on purpose, because if it's supposed to be the same Enterprise as Kirk's Enterprise, that computer voice back then from TOS was Majel. So having them find an actress with a voice that's very similar, it actually helps it be more like canon connective. And I really appreciate that extra thought that went into it. It does mean something. That was cool.
Yeah. Right. So I'm stealing this also from Mark. But it's actually interesting that you put that this episode has nods to the Naked Time and Naked Now. And actually, on my calendar, if you have the 2023, Maze is the Naked, whichever one from TNG. Naked Now? Time.
Naked Now, yeah.
Yeah, whichever one. And it's this picture of this frozen body, right? And then we saw the same type of, frozen body in Timeless, which we discussed last week. And I'm like, okay, I'm seeing all the frozen bodies in Star Trek this week.
Yeah, frozen bodies. Yeah, I did like this, more about like disease spreading on the ship and people becoming incapacitated. So the more people become incapacitated, the less brain power you have working on the problem. So yes, there are definitely throwbacks to the whole, and this episode itself, we didn't really talk about too much, was a little bit of, a comment on the pandemic that we just all went through. So, where they talk about isolation and even isolation at your workstations and stuff like that. So there are protocols even in the future.
Yeah.
So something that I loved about this episode that you couldn't have done during the 90s because of strict, each episode has to look like a Star Trek episode, and you can't do different kind of scene transitions. You can't do different kind of ship movements from what we've seen before. This is the way things have to look, right? Well, thank goodness that's out the window, because we got a really good scene transition at the end of the episode when Una was in her quarters, and then the camera sort of panned out of the quarters, and the next thing you know, you're in sickbay with M'Benga, and it looks like the two set pieces just sort of moved. And the transition was just one of the more beautiful scene transitions I've seen in Star Trek. And I don't know, I'm a nerd about background stuff, so I just really enjoyed that.
Nice.
Well, Ortega's kind of has a little one-liner of "whatever tweaks your freak, pal." That was that was directed at Ensign Lance before he
Right.
banged his head into the panel. But I'm kind of just very, very accepting. Look at the future. That hey, buddy, whatever you're gonna get your rocks off.
Yeah.
So there are, again, the writing is great. And so Pike, when Pike and Spock are down there alone on the planet, and Pike's like, does that thing have a setting for stun? And Spock says, I am arming us with knowledge. That is true.
Yeah.
That was a
A
cool
little-
line.
And I'm going to add to our assimilations. I just got to say, when Spock and Pike are on the ground trying to be protected from actually the Illyrians are protecting them.
Yes.
I got some feelings there. They're almost kind of embraced and hugging. I'm like, okay, Pike and Spock, I could go there. I'd watch that.
I'd ship that. Yeah. They have a very
was-
close, intimate relationship.
It was a very, I felt, staged moment. I felt it was too staged. Like how they were laying there and like,
Well,
you
I
know.
think the idea is, literally in their minds, they could be about to die.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
Completely,
they're kind
yeah.
of like, it's almost like, okay, if I'm meeting death by holding on to my friend because we're about to go together, that's how I kind of make it
Yeah.
work.
So that does lead me into a regeneration because I really missed the sort of the connection between, okay, Spock's looking through the archives and there's obviously some kind of genetic modification. And then bam, they are now these electromagnetic people. And I just feel that I miss that scientific techno babble to get us there. I know it's fake. I get that. But I mean, think about in TNG. They would have said some blah, 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 and said, well, they were here. And because of the electromagnetic, like I just wanted a little bit more to make that connection. Because I don't know. I felt very lost that it's like, well, these people were here. And now all of a sudden they are an electromagnetic storm. Like, what? Just connect us a little bit more. I needed more exposition.
Beverly would have made sure you understood that.
Yes, Mark.
Well, my regeneration, I don't have many. Obviously, it's a Strange New Worlds episode, so I don't have too much to complain about. But something that always bugged me from the first viewing was pretty much all of the scenes on the surface. Whoever was in charge of set decorating for that particular episode, I think, was asleep at the wheel. I did not like the planet's surface being on what are they, like a barge from the 1960s? Like they getting oil? Is an oil refinery? I don't know. That looked dumb. Then the bubble building things that sort of were they in the water? I don't know. Then they're inside of the building, and at one point it looks like an aircraft carrier hangar, and then the next it's all of this high tech. It's like you're inside of the Discovery Spore Hub because there's all those spore containers, which they just called, I guess, like what. They were reading off them.
Those probably were Discovery set pieces. So this whole show and Discovery are shot in Toronto. So I would imagine a little Googling might reveal where they went on location to film those planet sets. I'm sure those are, I saw, like, the one thing that really took me out of it was, those square glass window blocks that a lot of times are built for basements and things like that.
Yes.
You see a broken one and you're looking through a window that's broken. It's made of those same square glass blocks, just like it's very 20th century human construction materials. So,
that was an assimilation for me because it's very mid-century modern 1960s architecture, which is when the original series was filmed. And I was like, oh, it's mid-century. That works for Star Trek. That was the only part of the set that I liked.
So my regeneration is kind of a doozy because we didn't talk about this too much. But it is revealed that the reason the biofilters did not work and would have worked and would have prevented this whole thing from happening is that when Enterprise was going through its massive refit, it basically, Mbenga would not let them work on the medical emergency transporters, and that because his daughter's up in there, and nobody to this point even knows his daughter is in the transporter. So he didn't let that happen. And as a result of that, that was a vulnerability because that one system had not been upgraded. And had they had that upgrade, it would have filtered out the Illyrian disease or infection. So, and it's later, Hemmer is trying to work on the transporter and just kind of accepts being kicked out of sickbay when he's the chief engineer trying to solve a problem. And then at the very end, we got Una who figures it all out and just kind of sweeps the whole thing under the rug because everything turned out okay. And we still got a kid living in the transporter, which is problematic. Anyways, there's a whole lot wrong with that in my mind from, how that would go down. What do you guys think?
Yeah, she really needs to tell Captain. That's not her decision to make.
Yeah.
I don't feel. I'm with you on that.
A lot of secrets on this Enterprise. That's what we learned from this episode. It's like Lan's got secrets, and Una's got secrets, and Mbenga's got secrets.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Well, that's what I said. That the B story is this whole thing's about that. I call it the B story, the Mbenga story. There, yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff people are keeping to themselves, and it's almost like Una has to come out as an Illyrian in this episode, and Mbenga's protecting his whole daughter and dealing with the fact that here he is, the CMO on the flagship of the Federation, and he can't cure his daughter, and he's feeling shortcomings of that. There's just a whole lot in this episode.
Okay, so I have a question now that you bring up Mbenga and his daughter. So we know a couple episodes later, I can't remember which one, when that kid who's going to be sacrificed and save his planet, and he's 8 years old, and
we covered that.
I know. And they had the all that medical advancement more than Starfleet. Now, then another episode where the daughter decides to go with these beings, right?
Episode 8, yeah.
The Elysian Kingdom.
And is that a genetic modification to Mbenga's daughter? Did she? Because I'm putting a parallel to what we see here with the Illyrians, where they were able to transform their physical body to this electromagnetic.
I'm taking it more lower deck style. She ascended. Well, you think about it. She did. She's left it's very Transfigurations. She left the ship and now she's living in a nebula.
So, but her
Amy,
body had
you're
to
thinking
have been
so.
modified.
You're thinking so linear and not thinking non-corporeal.
Right. Yes. Okay.
Getting all DS9 now.
All right. So, shall we jump into some trivia? All right.
Yay! We got a deep swimming pool of trivia this week.
All right. Why don't you start us off, Mark?
All right. So, start us off. Chief Kyle is wary of trying to beam Pike and Spock back from the thick of the ion storm, uncertain what might come back. An event that he and his mirror counterpart experience in the TOS episode Mirror Mirror. Because if we remember, Chief Kyle is actually a TOS character. And so his character has been through this before or would go through it again in Mirror Mirror. So that's cool.
Dr. Mbenga's offhand mention of human and Vulcan blood in reference to past prejudices likely refers to beliefs like those of Terra Prime, who created Elizabeth, an artificial human-Vulcan hybrid based on Trip Tucker and T'Pol's DNA, to scare humans about genetic pollution and generally discredit the continued presence of Vulcans and other aliens on Earth. And that is from Enterprise, Demons, and Terra Prime.
Very, very
Interesting.
xenophobic type episode, or puts a light on that. In 2154, the Starfleet vessel Enterprise NX-01, badly damaged by the recent battle of Azadi Prime, was assisted in repair efforts by an Illyrian ship that had been disabled by an anomaly field. Enterprise helped the Illyrians in turn. They were unwilling, however, to trade their warp coil because not having it would mean a 3-year journey home. Needing the warp coil in order to save Earth from the Xindi, Captain Jonathan Archer and several Makos boarded the Illyrian captain, stole their warp core, leaving the Illyrians stranded. Reference Enterprise damage. Yeah, we were I was kind of mentioning that in the beginning of the episode. Not Archer's finest moment. I will say, I do highly recommend the latest episode of Trek Ranks because they do a deep dive into the top 5 moments from the Xindi War arc. So, and I was literally just listening about Azadi Prime yesterday. So, shout out to Trek Ranks.
Well, Jay Stobie, writer for StarTrek.com, noted about this episode. Think of it as outbreaks in the Naked Time and the Naked Now, crossed with the euphoria of the anaphasic ghost candle from TNG's Sub Rosa. So that means that whenever they came in contact with the sunlight, they had this euphoria similar to what Beverly Crusher felt in Sub Rosa.
Mm-hmm. Una's decision to delete a deeply personal log in the show's closing moments serves as an excellent homage to Captain Sisko's erasure of his own report in DS9's In the Pale Moonlight. Oh, I forgot about that. That's a nice connection.
I definitely got those vibes. One of my favorite episodes of DS9, so that's one of my frequent rewatches.
Well, we spoke about this earlier, and I want to bring it up now because I actually researched to figure out who she was. So, Alex Kapp is an American actress who provided the USS Enterprise computer voice in Star Trek Strange New Worlds, 5 episodes of the show. Kapp was born and grew up in New York City to an opera conductor father and an opera singer mother. So that's kind of cool. She has also had a long acting career in Hollywood going back to 1994 when she first appeared in the TV movie Deconstructing Sarah. I have not seen that, but that's really cool.
Wow, her voice was meant to be heard. Coming from a opera conductor and an opera singer. That's impressive.
Yeah.
It's in her genes. Get it?
This last one is pretty prolific considering our episode a few weeks ago. DC Fontana was the first to write Una as an Illyrian in her 1989 novel, Vulcan's Glory, which was cited as an influence on this episode. So
her
DC Fontana
reach is being felt.
Yeah, Una in Strange New Worlds, essentially her character was partly written by DC Fontana the way that she is today. Now that I just love. Yes. Yeah. Everything DC touches is Star Trek canon. We'll just say that.
So final thoughts. What do we all think? Amy.
Wow, this was such a good discussion, and just like sending your thoughts down a little trail, and where does it lead, and would we be willing to genetically modify? As a parent, would I do that to my child? What is this? Is this an evolution, or is this really we are changing us? Like, there's so many cool things that Star Trek introduces to us and continues a discussion, and I think does very well, in looking at prejudices that go along with. This is a really fun episode. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Mark?
Star Trek at its best makes us think about big topics and process big topics using allegory and futuristic stories to sort of get us thinking outside of the box of our normal lives. And I think it did a really excellent job here. I think that out of all of the shows that we have seen since the 90s Trek, Strange New Worlds, I think front and center, holding up the torch of what had come before and continuing that grand tradition of being episodic, being lighthearted, being fun, and also telling these really important stories week after week.
How about some homework from Amy?
Well, listeners, next week, just in time for our Memorial Day weekend, we're going to go back to our shore leave series with part 3, and we're going to talk a fabulous episode, Lower Decks, Wage Douche. I love it. 3 ships. Oh, such a good episode.
We would love to hear what you thought of today's episode and hope you'll join our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, to continue our discussion there. You can also tweet your thoughts to @AllGoodPod. Please follow the network on Twitter and Instagram at BQN Podcast. We've also partnered with our friends at the Fandom Podcast Network, where you can find us by searching their master feed. So, Amy, where can people find you when you're not ripping your shirt off?
Oh, well, when I'm not doing that, I'd rather be, finding the sun. I can do that very well here in Las Vegas. Well, when I'm not doing that, you can find me here on the network where I'm co-hosting Galaxy Class and Union Federation. I am on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson, but my favorite place right there, the BQN Collective, our Facebook group. And Mark, when you're not genetically enhancing yourself to have more hours in the day, where can people find you?
Well, when I'm not doing that, which I may do because I need more hours of the day, you can find me on the Facebook group, the BQN Collective. You can find me on Twitter at MarkWhite207. If you become a patron of the network on Patreon, you can also listen to my show, It's Green. And Christos, where can people find you when you are not helping Ensign Lance remove his uniform?
Well, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at GreekGeekSD, and also on Facebook in the BQN Collective.
Please hit the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get podcasts and leave us a star rating and written review. That helps others to find the show. You can also follow the entire network's podcasts with our master feed by searching BQN. This way you won't miss any of our fine shows like Galaxy Class, Infinite Diversity, Union Federation, History with the Zalagis, What's the T-Bev, Trexperts Quiz, The Captain's Couch, Bargain's Bin Gamer. Wow, we're getting a lot of shows. And Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast, which is actually launching on June 5th on this network. So please check it out. Give a listen. I think everybody's going to really enjoy it.
At this time, we would like to thank our associate producers, Mahendran Radhakrishnan and Tim Cooper. A special thanks to Graham Kelly for our opening and closing music, and for Mark, who does our artwork each and every week.
If you'd like to help keep our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. We will add you to the Hive Mind Facebook group so you can enjoy It's Green, Amy's Math Moments, and other network perks. With a monthly subscription of $5 or more, you can join our meetings on the Hive Mind Roundtable discussion on the second Saturday of each month. Visit patreon.com/BQN to get all the details and watch your messages. Thank you for listening.
We hope you'll join us as we search out
all good things.